everybody, you strong inspiration people out there. Man, I can feel you. I know you're watching me. I had a guy, he called me the other day. He said, I like what you're doing. I said, who are you? He said, that don't matter. I like what you're doing. I said, I appreciate you, my brother. I said, but hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. He said, man, I'm sorry I ain't subscribed to the channel. But I'm going to get to that subscribe thing in a minute. But check this out, my friends. I went to the Black Museum Association. If it wasn't that, I went to that too. But I also went to the ASALH conference. ASALH, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Carter G. Woodson, the granddaddy of Black history. You can't do this Black history stuff and don't know ASALH. All right. So I go to the conference and stuff. This is years ago, even before I had the channel. And I meet the guy who's on my channel. Oh my God. My man was cool. It was cool then. We had a nice discussion and everything. And what happened is he bought my DVD, and I don't think I had my book, but he bought the DVD. So then I'm looking around for people to interview, and everybody telling me about this dude. I said, man, let me find him. So I looked him up. He one of them Ph.D. people, you know, and write them dissertations and all that stuff. He's smart as all get out, got all A's in grade school and still cool about it, right? So I found him. He said, man, you know, give me a couple weeks. I'm, you know, teaching class and everything. And then he hit me up. He said, I'm there. I said, cool. I know I'm coming up. So everybody do this before we have him come on the show. Do this for me. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button, because I'm telling you, man, this guy know what he talking about, and he gonna blow your mind. You need to like this video. Hit the notifications bell, because when the videos come up, you want to be the first to watch them. So you can go out and tell people this stuff. You can act like you know what you're talking about, because you will after watching these videos. Then tell somebody about strong inspirations. Please don't keep it to yourself. That don't make no sense. Let it flow through our community. All right. The other thing I want you to do, this is what he bought right here, everybody. I told you he bought my movie, Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I'm talking about slaves that went to college, and I name names. What them racists did to destroy business districts. And we going through some of that we talking about now, because we celebrating 100 years of what they did in Tulsa. Unbelievable. Check that stuff out too. It's movies out all about it and everything, but it's in my movie. And then I don't leave you with that. I leave you with that good stuff of how them Black brothers and sisters was business people back during slavery and up through the 1960s. That's my movie. It's streaming on Amazon. That's the DVD case. But if you don't have a DVD player, I understand, just get it on Amazon. And then, and since I met my man, see, because you know, he rubbed off on me, man. He's serious dude. He talking big talk. I said, I got to get big too. So I wrote a book, and the book is titled Black Business Book. It's got over 200 facts. Now, I ain't gonna lie to you, my brother. So I ain't as proficient as my man. So I didn't try to interpret none of them facts. I didn't add no commentary or nothing. I just give you the fact as it is. And then I give you where I found the fact. That make it easier so that you can get it, you can digest it. And if you want to learn more, just go to the reference section and it will tell you where I got it. You can read it in some other big book, but I condense it right here in Black Business Book. You'll like this. I'm telling you. This. Somebody said it's the most comprehensive, easy to read Black history book that they've run across. All right, maybe that somebody said it, I didn't say it. And both the book and the movie is on Amazon, but it's also on my website, which is businessintheblack.net. Let me tell you one more thing. My man, he ready. He writing already, man. He got his notes there. I know my man, he got books, but I know he ready. Let me tell you one thing about what I talk about a lot. That's that word strong. Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. I got a strong brother. He about to come on right now. Young man, introduce yourself, please, and let us know a little bit about who you are.
All right. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I am Brandon Winford. I am a associate professor of history at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I studied late 19th and 20th century African-American history, American history, and I specialize in African-American business history and civil rights history. I am the author of a book called John Hervey Wheeler, Black Banking and Economic Struggle for Civil Rights.
Yes, sir.
Which really sort of looks at the life of an African-American civil rights figure who was both a banker and a civil rights lawyer, really look at his involvement in the modern civil rights movement, really from about the 1930s through the 1970s.
Okay, let me stop you right there, man. How you get to be so so proficient in history like you are? How you love history all your life or something like that? And then, how you get to be where you at, my man?
Well, as a matter of fact, yeah, history was always an important interest. Blackhistorymonth was always important. Had a dad who was always exposing us to history. Going to college, I was headed to law school. I was a political science major, and took a few history classes and decided I wanted to change my major to history. And so I really sort of began to really sort of take it serious from a standpoint that I, deal with history now.
I got you.
When I changed my major. So
let me ask you this. So as a history person, are y'all always looking back? I mean, that's what history is.
Right.
And then you try to relate that to nowadays in some regards as you teach the subject.
Yeah. So history, because of its informative and its informative nature, it instructs us on the present. And so we're definitely interested in look at contemporary events, issues, moments, and really try to understand them from their historical origins, right?
I got you.
Right. What is the historical context behind some of the issues that we deal with in the contemporary moment? We try to, look at moments in history that are familiar to what we see today. And so,
okay,
yes, we're always sort of looking to the past to really sort of interpret and inform the present.
I got you.
And of course,
let me ask you this: do you grow immune to the I don't know what the word to use, but say the negativities, the beat down, and all that most people they focus on in Black history?
We do have to talk about survival, persistence, the ways in which we've found joy despite various circumstances. So that's important. As a historian, I am trying to deal with, balance, and recognize the nuances in what is the Black experience. I think is really, really important.
Now, there was a particular story that you I don't know if it was from the book or otherwise that you wanted to share with us that we're going to delve into now. What is that? What is that?
Well, so I mean, I can talk generally about the focus of my first book, John Hervey Wheeler.
That. That's great.
John Hervey Wheeler was during the height of the modern civil rights movement during the 1950s and 1960s. He was one of the most influential Black power broker in the state of North Carolina. He was a banker, was the president of one of the largest owned Black banks in the country, the Mechanics and Farmers Bank. At various points between the first and third largest Black owned bank in the country. He was also a civil rights lawyer during this period. He was among the top civil rights figures in the South. Held several presidential appointments during the 1960s with the Kennedy and Johnson administrations. And so my book really focuses on his role as a businessman, as a banker, what I like to call a Black business activist in the civil rights
Okay.
movement. So it really explores his role as a businessman and the ways in which he sought to achieve the goals and objectives of the civil rights movement. And he always believed that they were grounded in economic rights for African Americans.
Let
And
me
he
stop
felt
you
like,
there. Where was he born, and how did he become who he was?
so John Hervey Wheeler was actually born in North Carolina, born in Vance County, North Carolina, which is probably about 30 or so miles north of Raleigh, North Carolina, the capital in North Carolina.
Okay.
He's actually born on the campus of Kittrell College, which was one of the Black schools started by the African Methodist Episcopal Church in North Carolina. His mother and father were from Nicholasville, Kentucky. They had attended Wilberforce University. They came to North Carolina around 1898, the same year as the Wilmington Race Riot.
They weren't enslaved, though, were they?
They were not enslaved. They were a generation removed from slavery.
Okay.
Both of his parents, John Leonidas, Margaret Hervey Wheeler, their parents, her parents, John and Jenny Hervey, his parents, his Phoebe Wheeler. He didn't know much about his father other than allegedly his father was a wealthy white banker in Nicholasville, Kentucky, but he never knew his father, John Leonidas, the elder. Parents were slaves, right? So they're a generation removed from slavery. So he's born in Vance County, North Carolina, on New Year's Day, 1908. Parents, educators. The same year that he was born, his father actually moved to Durham, North Carolina, moved the family to Durham, North Carolina, because he had a job working for what was in the North Carolina Mutual and Provident Association. It became the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, which was the largest Black-owned bank or Black-owned insurance company business in the United States.
Right.
During this particular period.
Let me stop you right there, man. I don't mean no disrespect.
No.
Here,
whatever questions, whatever you want to.
Because his great grandfather was a white guy, right? His great grandfather was a white guy. Evidently, his great grandfather gave him his parents, the gentleman you speak about, some privileges, and didn't beat them down, so that they were wherewithal to go to college.
Right. So he never, John Leonidas, John Wheeler, Hervey Wheeler's father, never knew his father. It was family folklore, family stories passed down that his father was a wealthy white banker in Nicholasville. So I haven't been able to,
I got you.
Substantiate that aspect of it, but that was part of the family oral history passed down through the family. So he didn't grow up with his father. He wasn't helped from that standpoint. Essentially, everything that he was able to do, went to public schools in Kentucky. From Kentucky, from then he taught in public schools, and then he saved up enough money by 1890 to move to Wilberforce University, where as a student, he did pretty well as a student and was able to get some financial support because of how good of a student he was.
Let me divert this way then. How about this? Was his parents very fair complected? And some of that fair complexion gave him some advantages in life?
Yeah. So his father, understanding that background is pretty noticeable, if you want to put it like that his father was more than likely white. But his parents went to Wilberforce, right? They worked their way up through college. And so in many ways, a generation removed from slavery, they used their educational attainment as a springboard to join the Black middle class. John Wheeler often said in interviews that he started off life even, meaning from an economic standpoint, because his father worked for one of the largest Black-owned insurance companies. From an economic standpoint, the Wheeler children started off life even, right? But again, there are some limitations, right, in society that economic privilege is only going to take you so far within the confines of the Jim Crow South. You know, whether you want to say, you know, some people passed for whites if they could.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, so that was definitely a part of the African American experience. And so, but at the same time, the Wheelers who made it clear, right, in terms of their identity, their background. You have so many examples of folks who could pass, who don't, right, and because they're proud of their background, their
I got
identity
you.
as
I like
African
it.
Americans.
I like it.
Yeah.
Why did they choose Wilberforce? Let's say.
And Wilberforce, right, was basically the flagship institution for the African Methodist Episcopal Church, particularly during this period.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
yeah, it's part of the AME Church. So Wilberforce was a school that was familiar with them to them. Uh,
Okay.
they they had those kinds of aspirations to attend a school like Wilberforce.
So now
They,
he comes out and he grows this business, this banking institution, to be one of the biggest in the countries.
right. So when John Hervey Wheeler, he doesn't come. So he attends Morehouse College in the 1920s and went to high school at Morehouse College. He graduates in 1929. He actually attended Morehouse College with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father, Martin King Sr. during the
Yeah.
1920s. But by the time that he graduates from Morehouse College in 1929, he goes to work for the Mechanics and Farmers Bank in Durham, which was at that time a thriving Black-owned bank among 50 or 60 Black-owned banks that were in existence in operation at that particular time.
Right.
So the bank as an institution and North Carolina Mutual, they were sister institutions. So there had been 20 years of these institutions growing, for lack of a better. So when John Wheeler comes to Mechanics Farmers Yank, he doesn't start something. He becomes a part of something.
I got you.
Right?
I got you.
The North Carolina Mutual was the major institution, but then you had the bank. But then in Durham, when we think of these Black financial institutions, there were at least 12 or so Black financial institutions that were a part of this Black financial network. In addition to the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company and the Mechanics Farmers Bank, you had the Mutual Building and Loan Association. You had the Bankers Fire Insurance Company. You had the Southern Fidelity and Surety Company.
Okay.
And so there was a Black financial network. And so it was among what we would consider to be one of the Black Wall Streets.
I got you.
And it wasn't just something that was there and inspiring. No, from a tangible standpoint, it was one of the Black Wall Streets because you had these financial institutions. So he comes as part of something that's already sort of on the move.
I got you.
Certainly in his role when he becomes a teller. So during the 1930s, especially, he's there as part of a training ground. So Durham is a training ground for him.
I got you.
In both Black business and civil rights or civic leadership, right? So he's learning, right, at that point during the 1930s. He sees his supervisors who are officers at the bank leading in both the community and the insurance and bank.
Now, for the lack of, let's say, competition, I mean, it's early in the game. You know, there's one guy that starts a bank in your town, and that's where everybody goes. Does he have some business techniques that really propel him that you found out? You know, like you could come in and write your check and we wouldn't bounce it for you, or anything like that really made him step out over the others?
So when these African American business people, well, let's sort of go back, right? So it doesn't just start with, you know, the bank or the insurance company. The founders of the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company, for example, John Merrick, he was a barber, right? So he had been very successful as a barber, had been very successful in investing in real estate. They also have been part of mutual aid and fraternal societies. John Merrick was part of the Royal Knights of King David. So these fraternal organizations were really great for those African Americans who didn't go to college, because they didn't go to college, right? Those were very great training grounds for Black entrepreneurs. And they were the early iterations of Black-owned insurance companies. So in terms of their business acumen, the organizational skills, they came in with those kinds of skills based on, being a barber, owning a barbershop, 3 barbershops for whites, learning how to navigate both politically the white world and from the perspective of the African American community. So they had a certain level of skill, ingenuity, entrepreneurship that they brought with them. So that by the time that they established the insurance company and the bank, they had some understanding of business from that standpoint. But part of their practices and operations, it was trial and error, right? So they had to learn by making mistakes, right? And then they had to confront regulatory agencies that were being established during this particular period. And so it is basically a testimony for how entrepreneurial, how, for lack of a better word, they were geniuses in being able to move into an area that they had no formal training in and to succeed. I think also they succeeded because they filled a void in terms of what was needed for the African American community. And so the demand was there, right? And so they were able to survive because they had met a particular need in their communities.
Let me ask you this: where I get the other part this is a testament of is how can there be enough clientele, Black people, to have enough wherewithal and resources to support a bank for that it could grow. At this point, the Black population, I mean, the people, they're working, they want to put their money in the bank, they trust the bank. Is there FDIC then or something like that?
So
how's there enough customers?
So the Mechanics and Farmers Bank is chartered in February 1907. Many of the founders of the bank had been co-founders of the North Carolina Mutual, which between 1898 and 1909 had been very successful, so much so that one of the officers said that the company was on a firm footing at that particular point. So they invested, when the bank started, there was about $10,000 in capital stock. And in North Carolina, can't remember exactly how much you needed to charter a bank. But $10,000 was more than what they actually needed to charter a bank. In Durham, and this is true for many of the cities, these New South cities where you had significant African American populations: Atlanta, Georgia, Richmond, Virginia, Birmingham, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, so forth and so on. In Durham in particular, you had African Americans who migrated from the countryside and were able to get jobs working in tobacco factories. Although in terms of the money that they were making in terms of wages were not anywhere near what their white counterparts were making, they were making a little bit better in terms of wages than the average African American during this particular time. So they're working in these tobacco factories. And so those workers, their wages fueled the success of these business institutions, but also the local hospital. There was a Black college that was started in 1910 by Dr. James E. Shepard. And so the working class African Americans, farmers, laborers, the working class supported the institutions, and by virtue of these institutions, a Black professional class also emerged, right? Doctors, lawyers, so forth and so on. So you have an increase in African Americans in the South who come to these New South cities, right? They're coming to these urban centers.
I got you.
And they're helping to do what W.E. Du Bois called upbuilding the Black community, right? And so yes, there's enough people to support a
Okay.
banking institution in terms of their deposits.
Let me ask you this, and I got to throw some dirt on it. Did he face some Jim Crow law stuff where the white people tried to shut him down over a period of time? They tried to kill him or something like that? Because who
That's
are
a
you?
really good question. So again, John Hervey Wheeler comes to Durham in 1929. In Durham, during this particular period, Durham had a kind of reputation, whether it was real or perceived, of being a space where African Americans um, could invest in their institutions, and their institutions were thriving, right? At the same time, right? Jim Crow in North Carolina by 1900, there's a suffrage amendment. You had an 1898 women's race riot, racial violence had taken place by the particular period. So the political rights of African Americans from a traditional standpoint have been stripped from them with the suffrage amendment. You have racial violence in North Carolina that happens. In him in particular, there were no instances where he faced, these life or death situations from that standpoint, right?
I got you.
I don't think he was ever faced with lynching per se, right? But when he was a student at Morehouse College, right, writing for the student newspaper, they wrote about lynching because lynching was taking place in Georgia.
Right.
In terms of their freedom of movement in a place like Atlanta, they had to come face to face with Jim Crow segregation in public accommodations.
I got you.
From that particular standpoint.
Let me ask you this: Could his bank? Did he have white customers? Do you think?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The Mechanics Farmers Bank, from its beginning, had white customers, and many of their white customers had accounts with the Mechanics Farmers Bank because they didn't want their white colleagues, peers, whatever, to, in some instances, know how much money they actually had.
Oh, really?
Right? So they always had a history of, there being white depositors, not on the level of African American depositors.
Yeah,
the Kansas Farmers Bank, from the time it started operations in 1908, it did have some white depositors.
Did he have several branches or something, or one branch? Or how was that? How big?
So just in general, during this particular period, we got to understand that branch banking, white or black banks, branch banking didn't really take off until a later period, right? Okay. And so one of the earliest black-owned banks to have branches was the Alabama Penny Savings Bank. Had a branch in Birmingham, Anniston, Alabama, and I want to say they had a branch in Montgomery, Alabama. But the Mechanics Farmers Bank opened up its first branch in 1923 in Raleigh, North Carolina. So up until the 1950s, it had the one main branch in Durham, and then it had a branch in Raleigh. And not until the 1950s did it get another branch in Durham. And by the end of the 1960s into the 70s, it had a branch in Charlotte starting in 1962. And ultimately, it had two branches in Charlotte. And then it eventually had a branch in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Winston-Salem, where it has those branches operating today. But in 1923, Mechanics Farmers Bank opened up its branch. It was the only black-owned bank in the country that actually had a branch at that particular time. Though it wasn't the first to have a branch, but it was the first. It was the only one at that time to have an actual branch.
Let me ask you this: as we kind of come to a close, did he enjoy his money and stuff like that? Did he have a big car and sharp dressing guy? Or?
So John Hervey Wheeler, one of the main officers in the 70s, guy by the name of James Sampson Jr., always said that John Hervey Wheeler, as a banker and bank president, didn't make a ton of money as a banker. And so that's not to say that he was not well off, but in terms of the salary of him being a banker, wasn't excessive. And that goes for the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. I mean, there's correspondence with white business people, and the white business people say that y'all are not paying your officers enough money. And there's one little anecdote. This is from the 1960s. So you ever heard of a guy named A.G. Gaston, who was a banker, businessman in Birmingham. So there was this one newspaper article in the Wheeler papers, and the article was saying that A.G. Gaston and John Wheeler were both millionaires. And John Wheeler scribbles in the margins of the newspaper, his article, he says, "That's true when it comes to A.G. Gaston, but as to me, it's not true that I'm a millionaire."
The radar of the National Business League, was he?
Oh yeah, he was an officer with the National Negro Business League. He had served as president during the 1950s as a president of the National Bankers Association.
Okay.
So yeah, he held leadership positions with essentially all of the main organizations that you can think of.
Yeah, okay.
NAACP, right? He was a civil rights lawyer. He had litigated cases as part of the NAACP. He had been chairman or president of the Southern Regional Council, this interracial civil rights organization in the South. Very, very much a part of everything, related to the African American community in North Carolina and the South. From a business standpoint, educational standpoint, he was on the boards of trustees at Atlanta University and Morehouse College. So had some involvement in higher education in the South.
Let me ask you this. No, it's not a question. Hold up your book. Let's see it again, the cover, and how can people get copies?
Right. So the book is John Hervey Wheeler, Black Banking and the Economic Struggle for Civil Rights.
I love it.
It is available through all of your online retailers.
Okay.
But I would encourage anyone interested in getting the book to go to, is published through the University Press of Kentucky, 2020. Go to the University Press of Kentucky's website.
Okay.
And you can purchase a copy of the book there. Okay.
Do you have a website yourself? People know.
I do. My website is Brandon, Brandon, Kyron Winford, KYRONWINFORD.com. So Brandon, Kyron Winford, one word together.
I got you.
.com. And you can find information a little bit more about my background, a little bit more about the book, some other projects that I've worked in, and some other media that I've been able to sort of be a part of.
I love it very much. Yeah. And a strong people, you strong brothers out there and sisters out there. There's a whole bunch of stories that we don't know.
Right.
Names of people that we don't know.
Right.
And he brought one to us. Right. This is what we do on Strong Inspirations. I find the people and I let them do the talking. I try to come up with a question. So to you, I say, to my viewers, first of all, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, because when I give him a question, he give you a good answer, don't he? He give you a good answer. Very thorough. And so like this video, hit the notifications bell, hit the tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Go to his website, go to Amazon and all them places. We're gonna put it in the description. Get a copy of his book. I know it's very good reading, and you're gonna learn about another one of them black guys who make it back in the day. And to you, my brother, I say this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. We love that you educating them people, enlightening their minds, and sharing this knowledge that you know with us who don't know all of it. We really appreciate you. Thank you so very much for coming on the channel.
Thank you for
and
having
stay
me.
strong, man. Have a good day.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Brogdon. We'll be
talking.
I'll stay connected with you, and I'm going to check out the channel and everything also. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.